Hello, Dr. Gary Chapman, Ph.D. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. It's good to be with you.
All right. Well, we want to kind of introduce everybody out there to you. If I'd be surprised if people had never heard of your books or if their friends hadn't heard of them. But for those of you just joining us right now, Dr. Gary Chapman is the author of The Five Love Languages, among several other books. I actually have a copy right here.
All right.
And this one book has sold more than 12 million copies and counting, been on the New York Times bestseller list for continuous years since the year 2007. And Dr. Chapman is a pastor and a speaker and a counselor who has helped couples all over the world to heal and improve and nurture their relationships. And we're going to cover a lot of ground with everybody today, including understanding how our primary love language may be nurtured or best used at this time, especially in these challenging times we're in right now. But he'll also be talking about nurturing our relationships with our friends and our families and our parents and our children. And we listened. I personally listen to audiobooks every day on my way to work, and I listened to you read your audiobook recently. I found it very insightful and very helpful. My husband's now reading this copy. We're newly married. And so I just want to say thank you for caring for your fellow man so much.
Mhm. Well, thank you. It's been amazing to me how that book has helped so many couples, not only in this country, but it's been translated and published in over 50 languages around the world, which says to me that the deepest emotional need we have as humans is the need to feel loved by the significant people in our lives. And what this book and this concept does, it helps people express love in an effective manner on the emotional level. That's what we're trying to do. And if we feel loved, life is beautiful in spite of problems we might face. If we don't feel loved, life begins to look pretty dark. So it's an important part of whether we're going through crisis or whether we're not going through crisis. Keeping love alive in a relationship, whether it's marriage or whether it's a dating relationship or parent-child relationship, the need for love is consistent with human nature.
And we are in truly unprecedented times right now. There's no handbook for what we're all going through, but you have counseled couples for decades now, and you've helped people through so many different kinds of crises along the way. But at the root of everything is love, as you say. Why do we need to lean so hard into that right now at this time?
Well, for one reason is healthy relationships actually boost the immune system. That's an asset. But the reality is, if we have healthy relationships as we go into the crisis, if we had a healthy relationship as all this started, it's an asset in terms of how we handle things. If we didn't have a healthy relationship, then this might be the good time to work on those relationships. But I do think that all of us want to have loving, supportive, caring relationships in the family, but also among friends and acquaintances. So if we can discover each other's love language and speak it effectively, we can enhance the emotional climate, whether it's in a family or whether it's in other relationships.
I've been thinking a lot about our viewers right now, and I've heard from a lot of them because people, in different times in our lives, people are dealing with other challenges anyway. There are people with health situations or going through a monster life event, maybe struggling with relationships with their own children, whatever the case may be. How is it possible that we can have all of this going on and still find a way to nurture this time with other people in our lives?
Well, I think in the midst of the situation we're in, where for some families, the whole family's at home now, one of them may be working from home, and one of them, or neither one of them are working because they're just laid off from their work. And there's the children. We're all together. Yes, there's all kind of things that have to be done. We've got to eat, and we've got other things to process. But really, if we can focus on keeping the relationship positive by expressing love to each other in the proper love language, we're creating a climate, an emotional climate in which we can better process the other things that we're dealing with. If children feel loved, for example, by the parents, there's less misbehavior. A lot of the misbehavior of children is to get the attention of the parents. And consequently, a lot of the misbehavior of a married couple is because they're trying to get the attention of the other person. If we can work on the positive side, rather than let our emotions, our negative emotions, control the way we talk to each other and relate to each other, if we can turn that around and look for the way we can communicate love to each other in the most meaningful way, we're going to create a positive climate in the family, and we can handle everything that we're going through in a much more positive manner.
Mm-hmm. It's a really nice way to put it. Now, it's a lot to summarize, and I would really suggest people read your book to understand it more fully. But for those who are kind of new to the whole concept, get us going on this. You suggest there are 5 love languages, ways that we each tend to appreciate receiving or expressing love. We have a little ranking system, don't we?
Yeah. And I discovered this in my counseling with couples through the years. At least that was where I first discovered it. Later, I realized it works in parent-child relationships and really all human relationships. But the 5 fundamental ways that I discovered that people typically express love to each other. One is words of affirmation. Looking for things that you can compliment them on. You look nice in that outfit. Really appreciate what you did. You know, one of the things I like about you, it's just using words to affirm the other person. There's an ancient Hebrew proverb that says life and death is in the power of the tongue. And you can kill people by the way you talk to them, or you can give them life. So words of affirmation. A second love language, and these are in no particular order, is gifts. It's universal to give gifts as an expression of love. The gift says, they were thinking about me. Look what they got for me. The gift doesn't have to be expensive. It can be a flower you pick out of the backyard. You can pick up a stone in a city parking lot and give it to an 8-year-old boy and say, hey, man, I found this today and I thought about you. I wanted you to have it. If gifts is his love language, you'll find that stone in his dresser drawer when he's 23. Mm-hmm. And he'll remember the day you gave it to him. Mm-hmm. And then number 3 is acts of service. Doing something for the other person that you know they would like for you to do. And in a crisis that we're in now, when we're all in the same home, we're doing a lot of cooking. There's a whole lot of acts of service that can be done. But this is such things as cooking meals, washing dishes, vacuuming floors, mowing grass, washing the car, just anything that you know the other person would like for you to do for them. For a child, it might be mending a doll dress. It might be fixing a bicycle chain, but it's doing something for them that you know they want you to do. There's an old saying, actions speak louder than words. If this is your love language, that's true. Actions will speak louder than words. Then there's quality time. Giving the other person your undivided attention. I do not mean husband and wife sitting on the couch watching television or they're looking at their computer. I'm talking about sitting on the couch with the TV off, computer down, not answering the phone, looking at each other and interfacing with each other. Or with a child, going where the child is and giving them your full attention. If they're crawling on the floor, then you crawl on the floor. If they're in the sandbox, you go to the sandbox. But you give them your undivided attention. And then number 5 is physical touch. We've long known the emotional power of physical touch. That's why we pick up babies. Hold them, kiss them, cuddle them, long before the baby understands the meaning of the word love. Baby feels loved by physical touch. And so in marriage, that would be such things as holding hands and kissing and hugging and the whole sexual part of the marriage. And out of those 5, each of us, married or single, young or old, child or adult, each of us has what I call a primary love language. You can receive love in all 5, but one of them speaks more deeply to you than the others. And then we have a secondary love language, and often they're very close. And those will be the ones that really, really communicate love to us. And if you don't speak those languages, the primary and secondary, they likely will not feel loved even though you're speaking some of the other languages. And that's why couples can be sincere and still miss each other. In their mind, they are expressing love. The other person doesn't get it because it's not their love language. So obviously the key, we have to learn how to speak the other person's love language, whether it's a spouse, a friend, or whether it's a parent-child relationship. In fact, I say to parents, the question is not, do you love your children? The question is, do your children feel loved? You know, they sit in my office. He's 13 years old. He ran away from home. He says to me, my parents don't love me. They love my brother. They don't love me. I knew his parents. I knew they loved him. The problem was they weren't communicating love to him in a language that spoke to his heart. So this can transform marriages. It can transform parent-child relationships or even friendships.
And it's truly amazing when you read the book and you recognize that people who finally have that aha moment, and it seems so complicated, but it really can turn things around for people. It's just amazing.
Yeah. It's a simple concept, but it has a profound impact on the emotional relationship.
That's so neat. Now, I mean, in this time when you actually had a really wonderful Facebook post, and I'll make sure it's connected with the article for this story when we're all done. But this is a time, it really got me thinking, the people who need a hug right now and can't receive one, the people who really could use a gift and it's really tough to give one.
Yeah.
People have shown us some really beautiful and very creative expressions in our world recently, which I think maybe is where we see the best of humankind reflected in some of our darkest days. But what are some of the things we can do for ourselves or our spouse or our loved ones in a time where that's so challenging?
Yeah. Well, you know, some years ago, I wrote a military edition of the five love languages for military couples.
Mm-hmm.
And I focus on how to speak these love languages when you're deployed. Now, you would think, for example, if you're half a world away, or in our present situation, it may be just across town, but you can't go there, they can't come here. How would you speak physical touch when there's physical distance? Well, one wife said to me, I knew his love language was physical touch. So while he was deployed, I put my hand on a sheet of paper. I traced my hand and I mailed it to him with a note that said, put your hand on my hand. I want to hold your hand.
Aww.
When he came home, he said to me, Gary, every time I put my hand on that paper, I felt her. It's not literal touch. It's emotional touch, but that's what we're talking about. A gentleman said to me, I knew her love language was physical touch. So when I left, I said to her, I'm going to leave my jean jacket here. When you need a hug, you put it on and I'll hug you. She said, every time I put it on, I felt his arms around me. So what I'm illustrating is that all of these languages can be spoken when you are geographically separated. So if, for example, your mother, and you know her love language is physical touch, or her love language is words of affirmation, well, we have all kind of ways to do that one. You know, we can call them on the phone. We can FaceTime with them. We can send them texts. We can send them emails. I mean, this is where technology is really, really valuable. As a matter of fact, what we're demonstrating right now, my being in North Carolina, you being in Florida, technology, absolutely incredible how we can stay connected with each other. So it's much easier for us to stay connected and speak love to the people that we associate with and have friendships with. It's much easier for us in our generation than it was in the generation when we didn't have this technology. So let's utilize all these and think in terms of how might I express love to that other person if I know their love language. If you don't know their love language, this would be a great time to challenge them. Go online, take the quiz. It's free, fivelovelanguages.com. 33 million people have taken the quiz. There's one for married couples. There's one for single adults. There's one for teenagers, one for children. It'd be a fun thing to do and talk about this in your family, whether you're in the same house or whether you're across town or in another state. Let's learn the love language during this time. Let's speak it. Let's see what happens. I think you're going to find it will greatly enhance your relationships.
I agree, and it's really interesting how often children reflect the love language of their parents, which you might find in your spouse, that each of you kind of mirrors what your parents had done. But it's not always the case, and if people out there right now, I mean, in our area this week, they just started homeschooling.
Uh,
Parents are feeling somewhat overwhelmed, just trying to provide for everything. Everybody's just really doing everything they can, I think, at the moment. But it's finding that way to communicate with your child. How can people identify if perhaps the way they're speaking to their teenager or sharing love with their child isn't maybe the best possible way? How do you do that?
well, here's an informal way. And you can really discover a child's primary love language by the time they're 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Observe their behavior. How do they respond to you and other people? My son's love language is physical touch. When he was that age, when I would come home in the afternoon, he would run to the door, grab my leg, and climb on me. He's touching me because he wants to be touched. Our daughter never did that. Mm. At that age, she would say, Daddy, come to my room. I want to show you something. Mm. She wanted quality time. She wanted my undivided attention. So if you observe their behavior, you can pretty well figure out their love language. Another one is, what do they complain about most often? I remember Mom shared with me that a 6-year-old said to her, Mommy, we don't ever go to the park anymore since the baby came. He's complaining that he used to have quality time with his mother. Just the two of them went to the park together. Baby's here and I'm not getting it. So listen to the complaints of the child, because that also reveals the love language. And I know that in the present situation where you're cooking meals and doing everything else, you're thinking, wait a minute, I ain't got time to mess with love, But I'm telling you, you concentrate on speaking that child's primary love language, you're going to see a different child, and you're going to have a child that's going to work more with you as a team. Because when children feel loved, all of their life is different, and they're willing to enter into other ideas and do things that you want them to do, because children, whatever their age level, they need to have responsibilities at home, not just the schooling that they're getting online, but somebody, depending on the age, they can wash dishes. Yeah, kids can wash dishes. So we're a team, and if we feel loved, we can work together as a team.
And I mean, people are kind of in these two extremes. I can't even physically see or be close to. I know my parents live out of state. They're all the way in Colorado. I can't go help them out or do any of the normal things that I would really like to do. Meanwhile, my spouse and I are right under the same roof. So it's like one extreme or the other. But just because you're under one roof does not mean that's quality time, as you had mentioned. There are differences just to proximity and quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes people think, well, we're in the house together, we're having quality time. Not necessarily. Quality time is giving each other your undivided attention. And so when you are doing things, both of you doing things, different things, that's not quality time. You're just accomplishing. It's good. You're accomplishing tasks. But unless you're doing them together and talking about it together, I mean, quality time is not simply sitting on the couch talking. It can be a project that the two of you agree on. Why don't we clean out that closet today? Would you work with me on that? Can we do that for part of our time? Sure, let's do that. But the important thing is not the closet. The important, at least to the person whose language is quality time, the important thing is we're spending time together doing something that one of us at least thinks is important. And that really communicates to them that you would take time to do that with them.
I think I posted something this weekend because all these church services are happening. There are drive-in with the radio, drive-in services, one's online, synagogues holding services. It's interesting because I've heard from a lot of viewers saying that they are either turning toward faith or away from it. And I wonder what kind of role is faith playing in your life? From my understanding, you're a pastor and you come from a place of Christianity and wanting to help couples in that way.
Well, for me, in crisis or out of crisis, the thing that makes the huge difference in my life is a sense of peace. Because I really believe that God loves us that he cares for us, that he is with us. One of my favorite verses in the scriptures, an Old Testament Hebrew verse that God gave to the ancient Jewish people, but it's true for all of us. Isaiah 41, verse 10. Fear not, I'm with you. Don't be dismayed. I will give you strength. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. And to me, that brings a great sense of peace. Christians or any religious group, we're not exempt from the things that happen in life. We're all together as humans. We have to all face what comes. But when we have what I call peace with God, that is, we have a relationship with him, we're open with him, we're talking to him, we're listening to him. We're trying to follow, what the teachings that Jesus gave, for Christians at least, the teachings that Jesus gave. And there's a deep sense of peace that whatever happens, we're okay because he's with us. And when we have that sense of peace, then we can process the things we're going through today in a much healthier manner because we're not wringing our hands afraid, oh, what's going to happen? We're concerned to be sure, but we're not allowing it to consume our lives. We're going to live our lives through this, and we're going to really try to make this a positive experience for our family. These could be great days in the family if we think in terms of how can we make the most of this. And, we could give our children such a wonderful experience during this time, those who have children, that 20 years from now, they could look back and say, wasn't that wonderful when mom and dad were both there all day long and they were loving each other, we were loving each other? Wasn't that a great time? We can make it that kind of time if we're not anxious and wringing our hands, but we're calm and we're loving each other and we're saying to each other, we're going to enjoy this time. We're going to make the most of this time. And we're going to have some reading times. So we can all read our books individually, or if the children are little, read books to you. And we're going to have time to do this and organize our lives, because children love structure. They thrive well under structure. So this is what we're going to do this morning. Going to do our online classes. Then we're going to do this. And then we're going to do this. It can be a wonderful experience. But to me, yes, our faith, our relationship with God gives us a sense of calm, that things will be all right. We will be all right. So.
And is there anything else, any last thought that you'd like to leave with us? Any other thoughts you have?
I would just say that if we can focus on our relationships, because life's meaning is not found in possessions. Life's meaning is found in relationships. And when we develop relationships, our relationship with God and our relationship with each other, we're investing our lives in things that are eternal, because we are going to live forever. At least that's the Christian perspective. We're going to live forever. And life beyond the grave is fascinating and wonderful. I remember my son years ago, he was traveling over Europe, and he would go into different places. He was by himself, traveling from city to city. And my wife said to him, I'm concerned about you. What if something happened to you and we wouldn't even know it? He said, Mom, what's the worst thing could happen to me? I could die. I could be killed. I will go to heaven a few years before you do. What's so bad about that, Mama? And that's when his mother released him. Okay, he's yours, God. But, when we do face that issue and we have the settled peace in our heart, that there is life in time and there is life in eternity. And that gives us a different perspective on life in time.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And again, thank you for caring so much about your fellow man. It's good to have you as a neighbor here on planet Earth right now.
Well, thank you. Good to be with you. And I hope that those who listen will find help and encouragement by what we said.
Indeed. Thank you so much.